quality and durability. Tap into the variety of furniture and home appliances from King's Furniture Company Limited. We are the ultimate in office, home furniture and appliances. You can't go wrong with the beautifully designed furniture and appliances from our showrooms. We deliver at your doorstep within Accra and Sekindi Takoradi. King's Group of Companies set a standard.
Action. Start times is 1 year, so you feel it generous. Generous! 18 year dropping, you free decoder part 2. Although start times there, you trying to low, now you're shining high. Part 1, now you have 2 months super bouquet. Part 2, idiot, over to your 1 month super bouquet. Sister Ghana, pet. Now you're the HD combo decoder, no up is so free. Yo, start time so I do novellas, series, live matches, so you're trying to HD. It's a free this thing only on Star Times. Star Times, turn your view.
Mission Ghana, live on News 360. Mission is supported by Star Ghana with funding from Danida, DFID, and the European Union.
Don't miss this week's episode of Coke Studio Africa. Monday to Friday to Sunday, come to my party, every day my holiday. Only on Coke Studio Africa.
Coke Studio Africa, this Saturday at 5 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it.
Hello everyone and welcome to TV3's special series 20 by 20. Now as we mark 20 years of TV3, we've set out to speak to the 20 most eminent Ghanaian personalities for their take on a wide range of issues. My guest for today is a prominent Ghanaian judge, first commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and a judge at the United Nations Tribunal for Rwanda based in Tanzania. Today we've been joined by Justice Francis Emil Short. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I believe you're doing very well.
By God's grace. And let me take the opportunity to congratulate TV3 on the 20 years of successful transmission and giving the audience, the Ghanaian audience, very credible news as well as informative programs and discussions.
Great. What's that you remember about TV3 the most?
Well, I think the facilities are very modern. You're very progressive. And I've been very much impressed with the environment generally, anytime I've been to the studios, and the professional attitude of most of the workers.
Great. So let's look at your assessment of Ghana's media. I mean, particularly from the Fourth Republic. What's your assessment of the media?
Yeah, well, the media has done pretty well. We have a very vibrant media. The media landscape is very encouraging. If I have my statistics right, we have over 200 radio stations and more than 20 TV stations, most of which are privately owned. And that's extremely commendable in the whole of Africa. The media has provided a platform and opportunity for constant discussion and dialogue on national issues. So generally speaking, I have a very positive impression of the role the media has played, you know, in our democratic dispensation, particularly, for example, in monitoring our elections.
Okay.
You know, the media has been on top of the situation, has ensured that we have free and fair elections, and they've been very vigilant and made sure that, you know, results are announced to the general public as quickly as possible. So I think I have a very positive impression of the media.
Okay. Anything you would want the media to do differently?
Well, I would like to see the media focus a lot more on issues, educating the general public on issues of corruption, for example. I don't think the media has done enough to educate the public on, let's say, the National Anti-Corruption Plan and what it takes to really wage a successful war against corruption. I think there has been too much emphasis on political issues, and I think I would like to see the media devoting more attention to other non-political issues like corruption and, you know, women and gender issues.
Okay. But talking about corruption, are we winning the fight?
I don't think so. I think corruption is on the increase by all standards, both if you look at the Transparency International Corruption Index, as well as our local domestic assessment by the Afrobarometer, as well as you know, the IEA surveys that have been done on corruption. We've had many initiatives in the fight against corruption, ranging from setting up of commissions of inquiry after governments have been overthrown. Then we had Rawlings and the draconian measures that were imposed, you know, killing of people and sentencing people implicated in corruption to, you know, long sentences of imprisonment. We've had all sorts of initiatives. President Kufuor came with zero tolerance for corruption. And of course, the Mahama administration, there are many analysts who have said that the tolerance for corruption was one of the reasons for the rejection by the electorate of the administration. So we haven't done enough. I must say that we haven't focused enough attention on the National Anti-Corruption Plan, which is a blueprint for the fight against corruption. This plan is grounded on 3 different approaches or methodologies, namely massive public education to get people to understand and appreciate the evils of corruption as well as the cost of corruption to the nation.
Okay.
Secondly, adopting prevention initiatives and techniques to fight corruption. You know, for example, adopting electronic or computerized processes and passing sufficient, you know, adequate legislation like the Right to Information Bill and an effective access declaration regime and so on. There are many items under the prevention, codes of conduct and sanctions for violating codes of conduct and so on. And then, of course, the last limb of it is effective investigation and prosecution of people who are implicated in corrupt activities.
Okay.
We have seen that there has rather been some kind of impunity over the years. People, especially at the top of the social ladder, social and political ladder, have not been held accountable. And I think that has not been That was the result. That's why we have seen corruption flourishing.
Okay.
There's no deterrent. You know, people feel that they could commit corruption or embezzlement of state funds and then walk free. You know, so I don't think we have done enough to fight the war against corruption. And the present government campaigned on a platform of fighting corruption, and has centered its strategy on the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor.
Will that help?
Well, it might help, but I think it's a narrow conception.
Why?
Because, you know, the fight against corruption, as I said, involves so many different components. As I mentioned, public education. Unless you can get people to change their attitudes towards corruption, to understand how we are shooting ourselves in the foot by tolerating corruption, and how much we are losing as a nation by tolerating corruption, unless you can get the general citizenry to accept that corruption should be the exception and not the norm, then we will not go anywhere.
But how do
so
we do
prevention is better than cure. When you talk about prosecuting people who are implicated in corruption, you are dealing with addressing the problem after it has happened, you know. But there are so many people who are engaging in corruption, but they are not caught, you know. And so you need to look at the opportunities, the loopholes which facilitate corruption, and plug all of them so that, you know, corruption doesn't occur. The institutions that have been established to fight corruption, some of them are not working effectively.
Which of them aren't working effectively?
Well, I mean, I don't think SHRAJ is what it used to be, you know, when it was established.
What has changed?
Well, in the first place, I'm sure you are aware about what happened to the last commissioner.
Yeah.
The impeachment and dismissal, which dented the image of the institution. I'm sure you are aware that even though the institution of SHRAJ has the power and the mandate to investigate corruptions without a complaint, in other words, they can initiate investigation on their own, just on, for example, media allegations. It hardly does that presently, you know, and so it hasn't demonstrated effectiveness in carrying out that aspect of its mandate, which is investigating not only complaints but allegations of corruption, you know. And so the institution at the moment is weak. There has been a lot of brain drain. A lot of people have left for greener pastures. And so I think that the institution is not functioning the way it ought to. IOCO, you hear about cases that it is doing, but we really don't know how it functions. It may be doing very well in the background. We don't get to know very much about the outcome of a lot of the investigations it carries out, and it's still under the authority of the Attorney General. And I have always suggested that it should be an independent institution, not under the Attorney General. So I think that is part of the problem. The institutions that are supposed to fight corruption are not working effectively. Some of them are not well resourced, you know, in terms of human capacities and financial resources.
What about the economic, you know, development when it comes to that area over the last 20 years?
Well, I don't think we have fared as well as on the political front. I don't think we'll be able to maximize our potential given the vast natural resources that we have, you know, and I'm talking about the gold, timber, bauxite, and now oil and gas, you know. I think the the incidence of poverty is at an unacceptable levels, and I think that we could have done a lot more than we have done presently.
But talking about Malaysia and Singapore, I mean, what do we need to do everywhere to get to that level?
Well, first of all, the discipline. One of the greatest problems we have in this country is indiscipline. There's indiscipline on the roads. You see day in, day out, motorists, both private and commercial vehicles, violating the laws of the Road Traffic Act, bylaws and regulations, overtaking on both sides of the road. Some, especially some of the V8s, they don't believe in joining the queue. Just put on their headlights and hoot their horns, and then they go past. Now, that is lawlessness which is not being addressed. We see lawlessness in instant justice. People taking the law into their own hands. You know, the death of Captain Mahama is fresh in our minds. The death of a woman recently who was stoned to death because she was alleged to be a witch. Yeah. And there are so many instances where the rule of law is not observed. There is so lawlessness, you know, in our body politic. Recently, we had the atomic explosion. Yeah. Now we hue and cry about where gas stations are being sited. We had the flood as a result of raids at Circle. We've had so many fire outbreaks, you know. And it's not that there are no laws. There are laws, but they are not being enforced. And one of the areas I think which we need to address is that in all these areas where we have all these casualties with these fatalities, the people who are responsible to enforce the laws are never held to account. You've never heard it said that a particular employee, for example, granted license or permits to somebody to build on a waterway and has been held accountable, or a permit was granted to somebody to site a gas station in a situation where it should not be. We never finger and identify public officers who have been responsible for enforcing the law and have not done so. You know, there appears to be a reluctance to impose sanctions on defaulting public officers. Okay. That doesn't happen in the developed countries. You know, it doesn't matter what your political, what position you hold in the political or social ladder. Okay. If you violate the law, you'll be held accountable. And the same, of course, with corruption. Okay. You know, so if we want to get to that stage, we must enforce discipline. We must also inculcate in ourselves patriotism, love for country. I don't think we are doing enough in that direction. You know, people do not see or prioritize the interest of the country as against their own personal self-interest. So these are some of the things that we have to address. I mean, in the schools and so on, we have to teach our youth to inculcate the values of integrity, professionalism, you know, hard work, and so on. The youth today want to get rich quick, you know, and they don't believe in hard work. You know, they don't believe in rising to the top through hard work. So these are some of the things that we need to do to address in order to be able to move ahead at a faster pace than we are doing at the moment. Okay.
What about the creation of new regions? Is it necessary?
Well, I'm not an expert in that area, and I think I'll leave that to I understand some committees will be set up to look into the issue. I think we should be, there are more important areas that we should be looking than the creation of, you know, more regions. And I don't know that it will help in any way. But of course, as I said, I'm not an expert in that area.
Okay.
But I think there are more important areas: the economy, corruption, you know, sanitation, the general welfare of the individual. There are so many more important areas that I think we should be focusing attention on. Of course, the present government is doing quite a bit in addressing some of these areas, like the fight against galamsey. You know, I think it has to be, the NPP government has to be commended, you know, in taking the bold step of putting an end to this illegal practice. It has made a lot of promises, very, should I say, not important, but very ambitious promises. The one district, one factory, you know, $1 million, is it dollars?
Dollar per
for each constituency, one dam, one village, and so on. And it has started with the introduction of the free senior high school education and so on. So there are signs that we are making headway, you know, but it is still too early to determine how successful the NPP government will be. But I think there are certain positive initiatives which it has undertaken. We should see us making some significant improvement in the general governance of this country.
Okay. So let's get into Justice Emile-Short's life a little bit. Tell us about your childhood, growing up in Ghana, you know, in pre-independence Ghana. And, you know, we've never heard of, I mean, I haven't heard about you. Talk about that. Tell us about that.
I don't know whether this is necessary for
a little bit.
Your 20th celebration.
We want to get to know something we probably haven't heard, you know, about Justice Emile-Short before.
Well, I attended St. Augustine Secondary School.
Okay.
I was there for 7 years, from Form 1 to Upper 6, you know. I'll tell you something that will shock you.
Tell me.
I love music passionately.
Okay.
And when I was in private practice in Cape Coast, I surprised you to know that I owned a nightclub.
Really?
Yes. And so, but that was out of my demonstration, out of my passion for music, you know. So you say you want to know something about me?
Yeah.
This is something that I'm sure you'll be shocked to know.
You love dancing too?
Oh, sure, I do love dancing, and yes. Yeah, I had a wonderful time in boarding school, and I think life in boarding school was prepared me a lot for life afterwards in terms of the discipline which you experienced in boarding school, and also the fact that you met students from different parts of the country. So it enabled us to learn to understand each other, you know. So it bridged that gap of ethnic divisions, you know. Okay. So I don't know what else you want me to tell you.
But talking about, you know, opening a nightclub and all, and, you know, being passionate about music.
Yes.
I mean, what's your genre of preference when it comes to music?
Oh, I like gospel music. I like jazz music. So I like classical music, although not to the same extent as jazz and gospel music. I like high life,
okay,
but not the kind of hip life that, you know, these artists go. They speak as if there is hot rice in their mouth, you know. I like the sober high life.
The sober high life.
Yeah. And
Which is your favorite? The sober high life that you talk about?
well, I don't know. I like Kojo Entry.
Okay.
I like some of Daddy Lumba's music. There are one or two artists, I can't remember their names, whose music I love quite well.
Any particular song of Kojo Entry that you like so much, or Daddy Lumba, that maybe sometimes you're walking around in your house and you get to sing it, or you'd love to listen to it over and over
Oh,
again?
quite a number, but I don't remember their names. But quite a number of Kojo Entry's music, which I love, as well as Daddy Lumba's,
I like Daddy Lumba too.
Yeah.
But growing up, any sports that you liked and took part in?
Oh, table tennis.
Oh,
I represented my school, St. Augustine's, in table tennis tournaments against Infants Juma de Saddle. And at one time, I was actually selected to be part of the Ghana team to play Nigeria, but I couldn't go because of studies. My dad would not allow me to go. And so even when I went abroad to study law, I continued playing table tennis, and I received a lot of trophies. I won a lot of tournaments playing table tennis. So and I had a nickname playing table tennis. I was called Man Shadow.
Man Shadow.
Yes.
Why were you called Man Shadow?
Because I was a defensive player.
Okay.
And I used to dash from one end of the room to the other to retrieve the ball.
Oh, okay.
So that is the nickname I had.
Maybe if I were playing at the time, I probably would have been called Sin, because I'm very good with table tennis.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, that was one of my favorite sports. But now I play golf a lot.
Okay.
I have changed to playing golf.
But just a short, talking about sports and everything, I see some trophies behind me. Can you give us a tour of, those trophies and how you came by them?
Oh, yeah. I told you that I've taken up golf over the last 12 years. And I started in Arusha, Tanzania, where I was a judge. And since I came back to Ghana, I've been fortunate enough to win some trophies, and these are some of the trophies that I have won, playing golf.
So which are they? For instance, this one?
This, for example, is the 2014 Family Day first prize.
Oh, okay.
For seniors, and then of course this one is MTN CEO Invitational Celebrity Golf Club Men's Group B winner. And this also is the Accra Open 2016. Men's seniors first position.
Okay.
Yeah. This one is Tema monthly medal, men B runner-up, 2nd May 2015. Yeah. And no, this is not this one. No, this one was my. This one has nothing to do with the golf, but. The award, on 2005, I was awarded doctorate degree in law by Northwestern University. Yeah, and this was the plaque in commemoration of it. Yeah. So I think I've told you more than you expected. About myself.
Yes, exactly, and it's been wonderful, speaking with you. But Finally, in TV3's 20 years, yes, you've told us about your memories about TV3, but going in, moving ahead, what are your wishes for TV3?
Oh, I hope that you'll continue in the same progressive vein that you have demonstrated over the years. I was invited to the last exhibition you had about your new studios and so on, and that was quite impressive, and as I said, your whole setup and the professionalism of your staff is quite impressive, and you are a notch ahead of some of the other stations. I'm not going to mention the other stations, but you are definitely a notch ahead of some of the other TV stations. And I think you have every reason to celebrate your 20 years. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Justice Emil Short, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure.
All right, so that's Justice Emil Short that you heard from. Some of the things you probably didn't know about him, you know today. And so that's all from us on 20 by 20, our special anniversary series. My name is Winston Amwa. Do have a lovely day, and thank you very much for joining us.
Mama, where you could daddy